What does Bo Nix need to do to be the best rookie quarterback in the NFL this year, Todd?
Complete more passes than he doesn't complete passes. I don't know.
So he needs to throw for 51% completion to be the best rookie quarterback?
You must think those other rookies suck.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them for sure.
Even Tim Tebow did that.
He was a great quarterback.
He won a playoff game. Yeah, I mean, win more games, throw for more yards, and then don't turn the ball over.
So
there you go. Yeah,
I like it.
That would do it, right?
Okay, so let me break it down to a little more interesting of a question coming in on the DNVR Broncos mailbag. This question from our Vada Luke. He says, from OTAs with other teams with rookie quarterbacks, it seems like Bo compares favorably, if not as the best of the pack in terms of early observations. What and how early could he show that this is the case once the season starts? So, Henry, don't look at the final stats at the end of the year. What about the first month of the season? What has to happen for people nationally, not just us, but people nationally to be like, did the Broncos really get the best quarterback in the draft at pick 12 when he was the 6th quarterback taken?
Remember Peyton Manning? There was that game.
Do you remember him, Todd?
Yep.
There was that game against the Ravens, the season opener. If Bo goes out there and just throws for like 7 touchdowns week 1, that would do it. I mean, there's just like, it's tough to say because it depends on the other quarterbacks. But I guess for people to say that he's actually the best one, or to at least think that there's a really good chance, he needs to prove that he's a good quarterback. In that way, it's not necessarily just like outperforming the other guys. It's look at what he's doing. He's good. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. And I guess, yeah, I mean, you start out with some wins. You go 3-1, you're throwing for 300 yards a game, and you're not turning the ball over. That would do it. But to prove you're that good in the first month of the season would take some crazy numbers like that.
Yeah, I mean, not just wins either in my perspective. They have to be winning from the offense. They can't be winning 17-16. Todd, you guys did that too many times, and we knew that it was not the quarterback that was driving those wins. 5-6 points per game on average in the first month, plus you're 3-1, plus 3 of those first 4 games are on the road. Man, that's going to get a lot of people actually looking at Denver, because I think it was Pro Football Focus put out their roster rankings last week or 2 weeks ago. You know where the Broncos were in terms of roster, how they compared to the rest of the NFL?
Bottom.
Bottom. The very bottom. Number 32 out of 32.
That's why we don't listen to Pro Football Focus.
Well, no, but I mean, Mike Clay. We're going to break into Mike Clay's projections this week as well.
He said like 28.
That's my point,
There's
though.
Some respect.
If the Broncos, after the first month of this season, are winning because of their offense, people are going to say, look what Sean Payton and Bo Nix are doing out there in Denver. This is a really bad team, we thought. And this rookie quarterback is leading them to 25 points per game and a 3-1 record. I think that's what kind of grabs headlines there.
You know, for me, I think he just needs 1 or 2 spectacular plays a game. I think Bo Nix is known as kind of a game manager.
Yep.
Very high completion percentage, and he's not expected to do the extraordinary. I think they're looking for that from Caleb Williams. They're looking for that from Jaden Daniels. So I think if Bo Nix is able to come out, be the guy we know he is, and complete a high percentage of passes, but also makes 1 or 2 plays where you're like, oh man, that's a fantastic play. I think it won't be long before people are calling him the best quarterback in the draft.
And so realistically, though, Todd, what you're saying about how like Caleb, Jaden, Drake May, if he ends up playing right away, these guys are guys that are going to be on SportsCenter top 10 if they live up to their potential. They're going to be on it every week, every other week, something like that. Bo Nix, probably not that sort of guy for the most part. So maybe to our Vadaluke's question, it's going to be really hard for Bo Nix in the first month to prove that he's the best of this bunch. Maybe it's more so at the end of the season and people nationally look around and say, oh, the Broncos had a winning record for the first time since 2016 under Bo Nix as a rookie. Oh, he completed 68% of his passes. He was in the top 5 in terms of completion percentage, not just for rookies, but for anyone in the NFL. And he had a 2.5 to 3 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. So maybe it will be more difficult for him because he's already going to be overlooked already because being the 6th quarterback, being on what people think is a really bad team. So maybe it's something that is going to be so difficult to happen right out of the gate, but more so at the end of the season.
Yeah. Also, who cares what the national media says? Like I don't think it really matters. Like, what does it take for Bo Nix to get Stephen A to say Bo Nix is the best quarterback? It doesn't matter. Like, don't listen to those guys in the first place, because that's what makes this so tough. Because like you said, like, oh, he's 6 quarterbacks, so he's going to have an uphill battle. That's not really how it works. There's like 4 people whose opinions are actually good. Like minicamps. Minicamps will go up there. Like Dan Orlovsky, too. Like, those guys will go up there and say, like, Bo Nix has been playing the best. He's the best. There you go. But, like, in terms of, Skip Bayless is now on board. Whoop-de-doo. That counts for nothing.
No,
it counts for nothing, but at the same time, if you do have that nod of approval, it does mean something. It means that you are playing at a high enough level that you have Stephen A tuning in, and if he watched a couple highlights, you have to be playing so well for them to kind of switch the narrative that's out there right now. And to your point, I think it's going to be either very hard for him to do or very easy for him to do, because these guys are expected to be spectacular. So I think there's going to come with a lot of pressure. And I think there may be a couple times that Caleb Williams is expecting himself to do something he did in the past, where he's throwing a couple picks because he's spinning out and just launching the ball downfield, and all of a sudden he's not having the best start to his rookie season. If Bo Nix just comes out and plays well, then all of a sudden he looks like he's the guy that, you know, everybody should have picked.
You know, I think Broncos fans want, Todd, I completely agree with that, but I think Broncos fans want the national media talking about that. You don't want to tune in to NFL Live or just flip on NFL Network or ESPN and have it be all about the Chiefs and all about the Ravens. You want to be talking about the Broncos. And you know what? They're not going to be talking about the Broncos if the Broncos just stink. Or if the Broncos are a 7-win team, because that's like middle of the pack. If Bo Nix is the truth, and Sean Payton was right that he's just as excited on Bo Nix as he was Patrick Mahomes, then everyone's going to be talking about the Broncos there, and Broncos fans want the national media talking about them. So I disagree with you there.
Yeah, you can want it, but if that's going to be what decides, don't get frustrated over it, you know? Because this is what happens over and over again. Like, as a Nuggets fan, we've dealt with this for years and years and years now, where it's like, hey, they still don't think the Nuggets are any good. Or like, oh, they say Nicole is not top. Like, it's just not worth the energy. So, like, if you get to week 3 and the Broncos are 3-0 and Bo Nix is playing well and they're not talking about Bo Nix, just give them the middle finger and move on. It doesn't matter.
KW7 coming in with the next question says, from the videos we've seen floating around, Tim Patrick looks to be back to his old self. How much of a chance is it that he's going to return to that? Is it just hoping he stays healthy, or has he lost a step?
I haven't been concerned. Anything I've seen. I think, again, I brought it up. That second practice we went to, there was this one jump cut where he got to the edge real quick, and that's where I felt good watching it. But there hasn't been much that really stood out one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Patrick, he wasn't a guy that won and was such a good receiver because he was the fastest, because he relied purely on his physical skills. He's a technician, and he knows how to get open. His hands are probably his best characteristic. He doesn't drop passes. When a ball comes his way, he is going to make sure to catch that. He didn't break his hand and was out an entire year because of that. So I really don't think that if anyone can bounce back from back-to-back season-ending injuries, which is an incredibly difficult feat. Todd, you would know better than I would on that, that it is a guy like Tim Patrick who relies on technique, fundamentals, instead of blazing speed, where the injuries he's had might impact that a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I am hoping that he stays healthy because, like you said, the things that make Tim Patrick great are his ability to get open in zone coverage, his ability to kind of make one guy miss. He's not the guy that's going to jump over you or outrun you or outsprint you. He just knows how to get in the best position to win his one-on-one matchup or to beat zone coverage. So if he's healthy, I know he can do that. I think that's the mental part of the game more than it is the physical part of the game. So I am crossing my fingers. I do want him to stay healthy because if he's out there, I feel like he'll be successful.
And what is that? If he's healthy, what is Tim Patrick for this team?
Kind of like the X Factor. I think over time he became somebody that teams started thinking, okay, we got to find a way to cover this guy. I think right now he's back kind of in his old bag to where teams are kind of unsure about him. They probably won't have him circled week 1. You know, maybe they'll circle Cortland and try to find ways to double team him. So I think Tim Patrick has like a little bit of an X Factor to him to where he could be dominant until teams start respecting him a little bit more so he could really be a spark for the offense.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that he does a lot of the things Samaje did last year, where just move the sticks underneath stuff, take like when a play looks dead downfield, you find Tim Patrick 3 yards, and then he runs for another 5 yards. Like, there's just a lot of that stuff that he should be a big volume target, you would think. Especially with the guys that they already have, with Marvin Mims going downfield, Cortland Sutton going downfield. You'd hope that Greg Dulcich is on the field. Like, he should be able to work those underneath areas. They're all cleared out, and he should be a great target on third downs and in the red zone and those sorts of things. But I don't know, I just can't think of many players who've come back after missing 2 full seasons.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't think of many examples.
That's why I think that's the biggest obstacle for him. If he's healthy, I agree, Todd. I think he can be an X factor. He can have that big of a role and be that important to this team. It's just that first part is going to be the most challenging part. Everything we've seen, encouraging so far, but obviously he hasn't been able to make it through training camp really from freak injuries the past couple of years. So once he makes it to preseason, once he makes it to the regular season, it's going to be a big sigh of relief for Tim, the Broncos, and Broncos Country. And final question coming in from Mike Trout, who says, Henry's point about P.J. Locke has me excited. If you could compare P.J. to a former Broncos safety, who would it be? He says, I would really be interested in hearing Todd's take because I think the player I'd compare him to would be Todd's former teammate, David Bruton.
Okay, I could definitely see that comparison. Special teams guy, played in the league for a long time, very, very smart guy, and then also found ways to make plays. I mean, when you think about David Bruton and what he did, even Super Bowl 50 year, he came in, he had, picks to win us games, to close out games, and he stepped in and played very, very well. So I definitely, I think I agree with that now that I think about it more. I probably was going to say another name, but as I start to think about it, that really is a good comparison.
Okay, if you weren't swayed, what name were you going to say?
It's tough. It's tough. I think, for me, I was thinking like a less physical hybrid between like a Darian Stewart and TJ. Like, he's like a mix of the two, but not as physical, but also has the ability to kind of make the plays that need to be made.
I like that. I like that a lot. The one that would pop to my head, and maybe it's just recency bias, is the guy that he's literally replacing in Kareem Jackson. When we think of P.J. Locke, the Broncos did so much. When he played last year, the Broncos did so much with him. And Vance Joseph had him playing high, had him playing in the box, had him blitzing, had him covering. And Kareem Jackson, with Kareem's background at cornerback, allowed him to do all of that. And both of those guys aren't big dudes physically, but they play just like a Darian Stewart, or they could play like a Darian Stewart, TJ Ward, like bigger guys. And Kareem was never really the Justin Simmons was your pure cover safety.
Yep.
I think PJ maybe has a little more coverability, but for the most part, I think he's going to be more of your strong safety there. So I wouldn't be shocked if he has a very similar role as Kareem Jackson. And we know Kareem could lay the hits and make the plays. We've seen PJ create so many plays when he's had opportunities.
Yeah, it's really tough just because the Broncos have had great safeties for a really long time. Like, you can't think back to a bunch of guys who honestly aren't even in like at least the Ring of Fame, where you think TJ Ward might end up. But like, you go back and it's like John Lynch, Darian Stewart. There's just like
Brian
Dawkins. Like, there's so many of those guys. Steve Atwater.
Yeah.
Like, it's just over and over again. So that's why I think TJ Ward is a good one if you just take some of like the physicality out. Which, who knows? Maybe PJ finds that, but TJ was special in that way. That's really what separated him. Then Kareem is another one. But a little bit bigger and not quite as athletic, not quite as fast. That could be the answer. It's tough because PJ is just unique. That's where like David Bruton is a solid comp, except for the fact that like PJ is a starter, and David Bruton, in part because of just the guys who were in front of him, rarely got opportunities to hold that role. So I struggle to come up with a comparison. I think I go with TJ without like whatever it is that made TJ as physical or just as crazy as he was.
I think if David Bruton was on this team right now, that he'd be the starter for sure.
That's the thing. But you just haven't seen much of it. But the special teams aspect all lines up, of course.
Man, I'd take any of those. If PJ can be that guy, the Broncos did a great job re-signing him, and I think that the Broncos did a great job re-signing him. I think we did a great job on this mailbag. If you want your questions read, leave them over at thednvr.com on any of our podcast posts, specifically the mailbag post, and we'll make sure to get them to you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.